What an honor. Today I have Eliza Gilkyson on the show. The new album is called Songs from the River Wind. It is fantastic. The song you just heard was Before the Great River Was Tamed. Eliza, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Tell me about the Wind. Tell me about Wind River. Tell me about the land where you live and what sort of draws you to that environment.
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles. My dad was a folk singer, but every summer since I was just born, we would come to the Southwest. We'd go visit my aunt who lived in Santa Fe. I had two aunts living in Santa Fe back in the 50s. And then we would drive up to Wyoming and stay on a ranch up there in Du Bois. So it's like a big part of my life. And as soon as could leave home, I moved to Santa Fe in the mid '60s or late '60s, and then I pretty much based out of the Southwest for many years. So I'm very, very attached to the mountains, this land. It was never a very good place for me to have a career from. So in the late '90s, I did move um, down to Austin, Texas, and I've been there since the late '90s. So this move back to New Mexico just happened with COVID, and the record is really born out of my returning to New Mexico and absolutely falling in love with the West again. And all these memories started coming back to me, and these images and people and events and loved ones that are gone, and the beauty of the environment, and living behind at the foot of this beautiful mountain here. And so I just fell in love with the West all over again. And so I thought, this is the time to make a record and bring up some of these older songs that I had written many years ago, and give them a new face. It really woodshed on those old songs and bring them up to spec and put out this record. So that's the story behind it.
So you left this western landscape for a while, and then you returned. What had changed?
Well, between it changing and me changing, I my innocence is the biggest thing personally that has changed. I was so innocent back then. I really saw the future as this, you know, wide open possibilities, and the West seemed so pristine to me when I was a child. You could drink out of any mountain stream. You could just drink right out of it. And now we have, with climate change, you can't even get onto a mountain stream anymore. We used to just go up in the mountains and camp along a stream anywhere. Now it's, you have to get a reservation a year ahead of time, and everything's very, very concise. There's people right around you all the time. But when I was a kid, the West was just, it felt wide open and wild. And so it has changed a lot. But at the same time, there's still so much beauty here, and so much visceral connection to the natural world. So that's there. But I'm older. I've lived most of my life. I have most of my years behind me now. So there's a bittersweetness to it all.
You have a song on the album about a Native American man named Charlie Moore. How do you think he would react to the way things are now?
Charlie was Anglo, but he grew up on the Shoshone reservation. He was a member of the tribe. His father was the Indian trader in the late 1800s at the a reservation store in Shoshone. So Charlie was definitely a member of the tribe, but he was Anglo, so he kind of was in both worlds. And I think he would be mortified. He was a naturalist. He I just a friend I had someone just write me that I don't know. I just got an email from someone whose grandfather was friends with Charlie, and he told me that when Charlie died, he reverted to the Shoshone tongue, and in his last days, that he was only speaking Shoshone. And that just kills me. It really moves me. But I don't think he would be happy at all with what's happened because, I mean, you can't even go into a mountain stream now. You get giardia. There's this horrible fungus now that's growing on in the streams that is being carried by boot to boot from all the fishermen that are going up and down. And it's he would not want to live in the world the way it is right now.
Uh, so you moved around a lot. You've toured around a lot for your career. Do you feel the same urge to wander the world and tour? And do you do you have the same urge that some of the characters in your songs have, or is that more of, oh, I want to stay here in the West, and the touring is just a byproduct of releasing music?
That's such a good question. um, age figures into the equation for sure. But I think really when I think about my travels, which is mostly, certainly every home I've ever had has been in the West. So obviously that's my turf. But I would say that I have had a strong desire now at this point in my life to sink roots, to grow food, to stay in one place. I'm setting up tours, and I have to admit, there's a part of me just doesn't. I don't want to leave home, and that is new for me. I'm just loving being here. I love not leaving the house, but I still love playing music so much. And once I get on stage, I feel like I'm flying, So it's a lot of it is a question of how to get there. I don't want to fly in airplanes right now, um, but I don't mind driving. So I'm just going to kind of just see if I can drive there. I'll play there.
So, what do you think for those people who have that wanderlust? What what's going to happen to them between COVID shutting everything down and everything becoming urbanized? Can we get to the farthest end anymore?
Oh my God, I don't know. I guess a lot of it's going to be COVID depending, but the world is not the same. There is a general loss of innocence and trust. So I mean, in the 60s, I used to stick out my thumb and hitchhike, and I trusted who was going to pick me up. I wouldn't do that in a million years now, and no woman would. And so it's not the same world. So um, I don't know how we are going to get ourselves back to that. There's so much mistrust now, and so much danger, and such a need for safety and a sanctuary. So it's a different time.
Oh, I think the danger was always there. Um, being from Los Angeles, you know about those serial killers.
Oh my God, I hitchhiked and I got picked up by really crazy people and fortunately was able to get out of the car. But you're right. I mean, we were foolish and we were lucky we didn't get hurt. Yeah. That is true. That is true. I can't tell now. I have to say, I've had just even like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I had a meltdown in an airport because everything was falling apart. And I was just like, it was a cumulative thing. Everything had fallen apart. My flights, my gigs, my everything. And I was somewhere very far away. And I was sitting there just panicking. And the black man at the curbside check-in looked at me and he said, "What's the matter, darling? You okay?" And I think about it now and it makes me want to cry because here was this incredible person who saw through all the turmoil of an airport check-in and saw another human over there who was struggling and reached out. And so, there's something about being on the road that you see things like that. You run into the most beautiful people and you see kindness everywhere. So it does balance, and I think you're right. It's more going to be like, do you have the courage to go out there and be a wanderer? Because a lot of signs around us say don't do it.
Well, for those of us who have the courage and have the drive, let me play Farthest End, which I think was just a really beautiful song. And we'll be right back.